The Oval Office meeting had been arranged through careful diplomatic channels. January 2025. Donald Trump was back in the White House. His second term beginning with the same approach that had defined his first, America first, no apologies, and an expectation that foreign leaders would adapt to his vision of how the world should work. The invitation to Captain Ibrahim Traoré had been framed as an honor. A chance for the young Burkina Faso leader to meet with the President of the United States. To discuss cooperation. To benefit from American generosity and power. Trump's staff had briefed him on Traoré's background. Military captain. Young. Led a coup but had surprising popular support. Made viral speeches challenging Western powers. Could be a problem or an opportunity depending on how the meeting went. Trump's approach was straightforward: offer enough to make cooperation attractive, make clear the costs of opposition, and close the deal. It had worked with other African leaders. Small nations understood that fighting America was pointless. Better to align, get what you could, and not make trouble. But nobody in the White House had seriously considered that Traoré might walk into the Oval Office and simply refuse to play that game. That he might see through every offer, reject every premise, and treat the President of the United States not with deference, but as an equal at best and a representative of an oppressive system at worst. This is the story of what happens when American power encounters someone genuinely unimpressed by it. Traoré arrived at the White House on a cold January morning. The reception was professional but not elaborate. This wasn't a state visit with full ceremony. It was a working meeting. A chance for Trump to assess whether this African leader could be useful or needed to be marginalized. Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, met Traoré briefly before the Oval Office meeting. The president is looking forward to this conversation. He sees potential for strong U.S.-Burkina Faso relations. But he'll want to know where you stand on some key issues. China, Russia, terrorism. The usual. I'm sure he will, Traoré replied neutrally. I'd suggest being open to what he's offering. The president doesn't like wasting time with people who aren't serious about partnership. And partnership with America can be very beneficial. I understand what partnership with America typically means. That's what I want to discuss. Waltz looked slightly concerned but escorted Traoré to the Oval Office. Trump was behind the resolute desk. American flags flanking him. The office staged to project power. He stood to greet Traoré with his signature handshake, firm, pulling the other person slightly off balance, establishing dominance. Traoré didn't resist or reciprocate, just shook hands normally and sat when indicated. Captain Traoré, welcome. Great to have you here. I've been hearing about you. Young guy. Military background. Taking charge. I respect that. Reminds me of my approach. Get things done. Don't worry about what critics say. Thank you for the meeting, Mr. President. So let's get right to it. Burkina Faso. Tough neighborhood. Terrorism. Poverty. Instability. You've got challenges. Big challenges. But America can help. We help a lot of countries. Nobody helps more than America. Nobody. I appreciate the offer, and here's the thing, we're looking at Africa differently now. My first term, we maybe didn't focus enough there. But now, China is everywhere in Africa. Russia too. We can't let them take over. So we're prepared to invest. Seriously invest. Military support. Economic development. Trade deals. All of it. Trump leaned forward. But here's what I need to know, are you with us or against us? Because there's no middle ground. You can't take Chinese money and Russian weapons and then expect American support. Doesn't work that way. Traoré was quiet for a moment. Then asked, Mr. President, can I ask you a direct question? Sure. I like direct. When you say, with us or against us, what exactly does with us require? Trump smiled. Smart question. Okay. With us means a few things. 1. You vote with America in the UN, support our positions. We're the good guys. The others, China, Russia, Iran, they're not. So when we need backing, you back us. 2. You don't let Chinese or Russian military into Burkina Faso. We'll provide what you need for security. No reason to invite them in. 3. American companies get fair access to your markets. Your resources. We invest, we should be able to do business without a bunch of regulations making it impossible. 4. You crack down on terrorism. We'll help. But we need a partner who's serious about it. That's basically it. Not complicated. We support you. You support us. That's partnership. And if we want relations with both America and China? Both America and Russia? Genuine non-alignment? Trump's expression hardened. Non-alignment is a fantasy. A Cold War relic. Doesn't exist anymore. Every country is aligned with someone. Question is just who. And if you're aligned with our enemies, you're not aligned with us. Simple as that. So American partnership requires choosing America exclusively over all alternatives? I wouldn't say exclusively, but primarily. Yeah. Because otherwise what's the point? Why should we invest billions in your country if that money helps you buy weapons from Russia? Why should we support you if you're voting against us in the UN? You want American support, you support America. That's how it works. Traoré nodded slowly. Thank you for the clarity. Let me be equally clear, Burkina Faso is not interested in that arrangement. The room went very quiet. Trump's advisors, standing along the wall, exchanged glances. Foreign leaders didn't usually open with rejection. You're not interested? Trump's voice had an edge now. Mr. President, you're describing subordination. You're asking Burkina Faso to surrender our foreign policy to American approval. To reject relationships with any country America doesn't like. To open our economy to American corporations without restrictions. To vote America's way regardless of our own interests. That's not partnership. That's a client-state relationship. And we're not interested in being a client state. That's not what yes it is. You said it clearly. With us or against us. Vote with America in the UN. Don't let Chinese or Russian military in. American companies get fair access. Every one of those is a demand that we prioritize American interests over our own. That's not equal partnership. That's subordination. Trump leaned back, assessing. You're being naive. Small countries don't have the luxury of independence. You need support from major powers. You can get that support from America, which is better for you, or from China and Russia, which is worse. But you can't go it alone. Your economy isn't strong enough. Your military isn't powerful enough. You face threats you can't handle by yourself. Those are facts. I agree, those are facts. What I dispute is your conclusion that those facts require surrendering sovereignty. Burkina Faso needs external support. True. But we can seek that support from multiple sources. Play them against each other. Maintain enough independence that no single power controls us. That's not naive. That's basic strategy. It's also a great way to piss everyone off and end up with no support from anyone. Perhaps. But it's our decision to make. Not yours. Trump stared at Traoré for a long moment. Then shifted approaches. Okay. Let me try this differently. What do you actually want? Forget the philosophy. What does Burkina Faso need that would make this meeting worthwhile? Honest partnership. Which means what? Investment without conditions. America is welcome to invest in Burkina Faso. But that investment can't come with requirements that we vote certain ways or exclude other partners. Trade without exploitation. If American companies want our resources, they pay fair market rates. They employ Burkinabe workers. They transfer technology. They don't just extract and export. Military support without bases. If we need training or equipment, we'll consider American offers. But America doesn't get permanent military presence on our soil. That's non-negotiable. And respect for our sovereignty. We'll make decisions based on our interests. Sometimes that will align with America. Sometimes not. We expect you to accept that without threats or punishment. Trump shook his head. That's not realistic. We're not going to invest billions with no assurance you're actually on our side. That's just bad business. Then don't invest. We'll find other partners. Who? China? They'll own you within 5 years. Russia? They'll turn you into a proxy for their regional games. You think they're offering better terms than America? No. They're offering different terms. Also bad in different ways. But having multiple bad options means we can play them against each other. Get what we need without giving any single power complete control. That's better than having one option and being completely dependent. Trump stood, walking to the window. You know what I think? I think you've read too much revolutionary theory, Sankara, Nkrumah, that whole non-aligned movement bullshit. Sounds great in speeches. Doesn't work in reality. The world is run by powerful countries. Always has been. Always will be. And the sooner you accept that, the better off your people will be. Traoré remained seated, calm. Mr. President, Burkina Faso was colonized by France for 60 years. We've spent another 60 years in various forms of neo-colonial dependence. We understand how powerful countries run the world. We've lived under that system. What you're calling reality is just the current arrangement of power that benefits powerful countries. We're not naive about it. We're just refusing to accept it anymore. Trump turned back, irritated now. So what? You're going to revolutionize the international system? You and Burkina Faso? No. We're going to pursue our interests regardless of whether that fits American preferences. If that's revolutionary, the problem isn't our ambition. It's your expectation of subordination. Trump walked back to his desk, sat down heavily. Let me tell you what happens to countries that defy America. We have tools. Economic sanctions. Diplomatic isolation. We can make things very difficult for you. Burkina Faso needs access to international markets. Needs foreign investment. Needs development assistance. We control a lot of that. Through the World Bank. IMF. Our allies. You really want to risk that? Are you threatening me, Mr. President? I'm explaining reality. Actions have consequences. If you reject American partnership, if you align with our adversaries, there will be consequences. That's not a threat. It's how the world works. And there it is. The core of American foreign policy. Partner with us on our terms or we'll destroy you. You can dress it up with talk about partnership and mutual benefit. But ultimately, it's domination or punishment. Those are the options. It's called protecting American interests. Which is my job. And protecting Burkinabe interests is my job. Even if that means saying no to America. Trump's voice rose slightly. You're being incredibly foolish. Do you understand how much power America has? How much we could help or hurt Burkina Faso? And you're sitting here lecturing me about sovereignty like it matters more than feeding your people? It does matter more. Because a people who surrender sovereignty for temporary material benefit aren't free. They're comfortable subjects. And eventually the material benefit disappears while the subordination remains. We've lived that cycle. We're not doing it again. Not for France. Not for China. Not for Russia. And not for America. The meeting was clearly failing. Trump's national security advisor tried to intervene. Perhaps we could explore specific areas of cooperation. Traoré cut him off. I appreciate the attempt to salvage this. But I think President Trump and I understand each other clearly now. He's offering American support in exchange for Burkinabe subordination. I'm declining because we value sovereignty more than support. There's no middle ground to explore. Our frameworks are incompatible. Trump looked at Traoré with something between anger and grudging respect. You know what? You've got balls. I'll give you that. Most leaders come in here kissing ass, trying to get whatever they can. You're actually telling the President of the United States to fuck off. That's either brave or stupid. Maybe both. I'm not telling you to fuck off, Mr. President. I'm telling you we're not for sale. There's a difference. If America wants genuine partnership with Burkina Faso, based on mutual respect and sovereign equality, we're open to that. But if partnership means subordination, we're not interested regardless of what you're offering. Genuine partnership between America and Burkina Faso means America gets something out of it. Not just warm feelings about respecting sovereignty. I agree. And America can get something out of it. Access to markets. Opportunities for investment. A stable partner in West Africa. But America doesn't get control. Doesn't get to determine our foreign policy. Doesn't get exclusive access that shuts out everyone else. If that's unacceptable, then we have nothing to discuss. Trump stood, signaling the meeting was over. I guess we don't. Because what you're describing isn't partnership. It's you doing whatever you want while occasionally throwing us a bone. That doesn't interest me. When you're ready to be serious about actual cooperation that benefits America, not just Burkina Faso, you let me know. Traoré stood, picked up his red beret. Mr. President, the fact that you see equal partnership as me doing whatever I want tells me everything about how you view small countries. As things to be controlled, not equals to be respected. That's why we can't work with you. Not because we're anti-American. But because we're pro-Burkinabe. And in your framework, those are incompatible. He extended his hand. Trump shook it briefly. Good luck, Captain. You're going to need it. Traoré walked out of the Oval Office. The meeting had lasted 30 minutes. The shortest such meeting Trump had held with a foreign leader. As Traoré left the White House, one of Trump's advisors asked, "So what do we do about him?" Trump was quiet, then, "Nothing right now. Let him try his independent strategy. See how it works when he can't get development loans because we've told the World Bank to slow-roll his applications. See how it works when American companies won't invest because we've made it clear he's not a priority. See how it works when France and our European allies follow our lead in reducing engagement. He'll either come back ready to deal on our terms, or he'll fail and become an example of why you don't defy America. And if he doesn't fail?" Trump looked out the window. "Then we have a bigger problem than one African country. Because it means small nations can say no to America without consequences. And if that becomes the norm, our entire foreign policy framework collapses. So he better fail. Because if he doesn't, we'll have to make sure he does." The fallout from the Oval Office meeting was immediate and calculated. Within 48 hours, 3 things happened simultaneously. First, the U.S. ambassador to Burkina Faso requested an urgent meeting with Traoré's foreign minister to express deep concern about the trajectory of bilateral relations. Second, a State Department official quietly informed the World Bank that Burkina Faso's pending loan applications should undergo additional scrutiny before approval. Third, American intelligence agencies received instructions to reassess security cooperation with Ouagadougou. The message was clear: Traoré's defiance would have consequences. But something Trump's team hadn't anticipated was that Traoré had prepared for exactly this response. Within hours of leaving the White House, he was on a plane to Beijing. 2 days after rejecting American terms, he was in Moscow. A week later, Ankara. The diplomatic tour wasn't secret. Traoré made sure it was highly visible. Each meeting was photographed, reported, analyzed. The message to Washington: "You're not the only option." The American response escalated. Trump tweeted, "Met with Burkina Faso captain who thinks his small country can lecture America. We offered friendship and support. He chose China and Russia instead. Big mistake. Sad. The tweet was accompanied by announcements of increased support for Burkina Faso's neighbors, Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, Niger. All framed as rewarding, reliable partners, compared to unstable leadership in Ouagadougou. But Traoré didn't back down. Instead, he gave an interview to Al Jazeera that went viral. President Trump offered Burkina Faso a deal: surrender your foreign policy, exclude countries America doesn't like, open your economy to American corporations without restrictions, and in exchange receive American support. I declined because those aren't terms of partnership. Those are terms of subordination. Trump's angry because he expected compliance and got defiance instead. He's not used to small countries saying no. But saying no is exactly what sovereignty means. The interviewer asked, "Aren't you concerned about American retaliation?" Of course. America is the world's most powerful nation. They have many tools to punish countries that don't comply. But here's what I've learned: if you're afraid of American retaliation, you'll never make decisions based on your own interests. You'll always be asking, what does Washington want, instead of what does our country need? That's not governance. That's management of your own colonization. But practically, can Burkina Faso survive American opposition? We'll find out. But I'd rather fail trying to build genuine independence than succeed at managing comfortable dependence. Because comfortable dependence eventually becomes uncomfortable anyway. The terms get worse. The demands increase. You end up subordinated without even the benefits you accepted subordination for. We've seen that pattern across Africa for decades. We're breaking it. The interview was watched by millions. African leaders watching with a mixture of admiration and concern. Admiration for the courage. Concern about the consequences. Western diplomats watching with irritation that Traoré was successfully framing American pressure as proof of his argument rather than as punishment to be avoided. 6 months after the Oval Office meeting, the pressure campaign was in full effect. The World Bank had indeed slow-rolled Burkina Faso's loan applications. American companies had quietly been advised that investments there weren't strategic priorities. France and other European allies had reduced development assistance, citing budget constraints and shifting priorities. But Traoré had successfully diversified. Chinese investment had increased. Not without strings, Beijing had its own agenda. But on terms Traoré had negotiated rather than accepted passively. Russian military cooperation had expanded. Again with trade-offs, but trade-offs Burkina Faso had agency in managing. Turkish infrastructure projects had begun. Gulf states had opened new development channels. The strategy of playing multiple powers against each other was working. Not perfectly. Not without costs. But working enough that Burkina Faso wasn't collapsing the way Washington had predicted. Trump, watching this unfold, grew increasingly frustrated. In a National Security Council meeting, he demanded answers. "I thought we were making this guy's life difficult. How is he doing deals with everyone except us?" His Africa advisor explained, "Mr. President, he's doing what he said he'd do. Playing multiple powers against each other. He takes Chinese money but limits their control. Takes Russian weapons but doesn't grant bases. Takes Turkish investment in specific sectors while maintaining leverage. He's actually executing the strategy he described. So our pressure isn't working? It's making things harder for him. But not hard enough to force capitulation. And it's actually validating his narrative, that America punishes independence and therefore can't be trusted as a genuine partner." Trump slammed the table. "I don't want to validate his narrative. I want to break him. Make an example. Show other African leaders what happens when you reject American partnership." His national security advisor spoke carefully. "Sir, we have options. But they're escalatory. Covert operations to destabilize his government. Support for opposition groups. Economic sanctions that go beyond quiet pressure to public punishment. But each of those carries risks. If we're caught destabilizing an African government because their leader refused subordination to American terms, it proves exactly what he's been saying about us. So what? We just let him win. We let the situation develop. He's maintaining independence now, but it's fragile. He's dependent on balancing multiple unreliable partners. If any one of them pulls back, or if their demands become incompatible, his strategy collapses. We don't need to actively destroy him. We just need to wait for his approach to fail on its own. Then other African leaders learn the lesson: independence sounds good but doesn't work. Trump didn't like waiting. But he reluctantly agreed to hold off on aggressive action while maintaining pressure. The strategy was to make Traoré's path as difficult as possible without creating a public confrontation that would make him a martyr. But 1 year after the Oval Office meeting, something unexpected happened. Traoré was invited to address the UN General Assembly. His speech was carefully crafted to challenge not just American policy, but the entire framework of major power relations with developing nations. The international system is based on a lie. The lie is that powerful nations and weak nations are partners. That our relationships are mutual. That the system serves everyone's interests. This is false. The system serves powerful nations' interests. Weak nations participate not because we benefit, but because we have no choice. Or we're told we have no choice. President Trump offered Burkina Faso American support. But that support came with conditions: vote America's way in the UN, exclude countries America opposes, open our economy to American corporations on terms they dictate. When I declined, America retaliated. Pressured international institutions to deny us loans. Advised allies to reduce assistance. Made clear that rejecting American terms meant accepting American punishment. This is not partnership. This is a protection racket. Accept our terms or suffer the consequences. And we're told to be grateful for this arrangement because the alternative, Chinese or Russian domination, is supposedly worse. But here's what powerful nations don't want us to realize: we don't have to choose between different forms of domination. We can choose genuine independence. It's harder. It's more precarious. It requires balancing multiple unreliable partners rather than depending on one powerful patron. But it's possible. And Burkina Faso is proving it's possible. The speech was interrupted multiple times by applause. Not from Western delegations, they sat in stony silence. But from developing nations across Africa, Asia, Latin America. Countries that had lived under similar pressure. That had made similar calculations. That were watching to see if Traoré's approach could actually work. He continued, "I'm not naive. I understand Burkina Faso is small. Poor. Vulnerable. I understand we need external support. But needing support doesn't mean surrendering sovereignty. Doesn't mean accepting that powerful nations have the right to dictate our foreign policy, control our economy, determine our relationships. If that's the price of support, the price is too high. Because sovereignty isn't a luxury. It's not something poor countries can't afford. It's the foundation of actual development. Because development controlled by foreign powers isn't development. It's managed dependence. And managed dependence eventually becomes exploitation regardless of how it starts." The American delegation walked out during the speech. Trump, watching from Washington, was furious. He immediately tweeted, "UN speech by Burkina Faso was insult to America and everything we've done for Africa. We offer help, they offer ingratitude. No more aid to countries that hate us. America first." But the tweet backfired. Because it proved Traoré's point. That American aid wasn't aid, it was leverage. That rejecting American terms was treated as ingratitude. That sovereignty was seen as hostility. The walking out. The angry tweet. The threats. All of it validated the argument that American partnership required subordination, not equality. International reaction was divided but telling. Western media criticized Traoré as reckless and anti-American. But developing world media celebrated him as finally saying what everyone thought but feared to express. Within 2 weeks, 6 African nations requested meetings with Traoré to discuss how he was managing to maintain independence. They didn't necessarily want to replicate his approach, the costs were real and the risks high. But they wanted to understand if alternatives to complete American or Chinese alignment were genuinely possible. Trump's team realized they had a problem. Their pressure campaign hadn't broken Traoré. It had made him more influential. Had turned him into a symbol of resistance to Western dominance. Had inadvertently elevated him from leader of a small African nation to spokesperson for developing world frustration with the international system. In a private Oval Office meeting, Trump's advisors debated next steps. "We need to change approach," the Secretary of State argued. "Continued pressure is making him stronger. We're validating his narrative that America punishes independence. We need to de-escalate." De-escalate? Trump was incredulous. "He's making us look weak. Making it seem like small countries can defy America without consequences. The consequences are backfiring, Mr. President. Every time we pressure him and he survives, it demonstrates that alternatives to American alignment exist. That's more dangerous than one defiant African leader. It's a challenge to our entire foreign policy model." Trump paced. "So what? We just accept that he beat us? We offer a genuine reset. Invite him back. Offer terms that actually respect sovereignty. Prove we can adapt. If we don't, other nations follow his model. But if we show flexibility, we can maintain influence without requiring complete subordination." Trump hated the idea. Hated admitting that Traoré's approach had worked. But he understood the strategic logic. If the choice was between appearing flexible or appearing impotent, flexibility was better. 2 months later, Traoré received another invitation to Washington. This time the framing was different. Not, "Come discuss how you can align with America," but "Come discuss genuine partnership on mutually acceptable terms." Traoré's advisors were skeptical. "It's a trap. They want to look reasonable while getting you to compromise." "Maybe," Traoré said. "Or maybe they've realized their approach isn't working. Either way, I should hear what they're offering. If it's the same subordination with better packaging, I'll reject it again. If it's actually different, we can engage." The second meeting was scheduled for 14 months after the first. Different tone. Different approach. But same fundamental question: could America accept genuine partnership with a small nation that insisted on sovereignty? Or would this just be another performance of flexibility masking the same demands for subordination? When Traoré walked into the Oval Office the second time, the atmosphere was different. Trump was still Trump, bombastic, transactional, focused on winning. But there was grudging respect now. "Captain Traoré. Welcome back. You know, you're the only foreign leader who's told me no and then I invited back. That's because you've got guts. I respect that even when it pisses me off. Thank you for the second meeting, Mr. President. Let me be straight with you. My team says our approach to you hasn't worked. That we've made you more influential by trying to break you. I don't like admitting that. But I'm a pragmatist. If something doesn't work, you try something else. So I'm here to ask, what would actual partnership between America and Burkina Faso look like? Your version, not mine." Traoré was cautious. "The same things I said last time. Investment without political conditions. Trade without exploitation. Military cooperation without bases. Respect for our sovereign decisions even when they don't align with American preferences. And if we agree to that, what does America get? A reliable partner in West Africa. Not a subordinate who does whatever you say, but a partner who cooperates when interests align and respectfully disagrees when they don't. Access to markets and opportunities. A leader who doesn't hate America but won't be controlled by America. Isn't that more valuable than a resentful client state that complies out of fear? Trump considered this. Maybe. But I need something concrete. Something I can point to and say, this is what we got from treating Burkina Faso as an equal. Give me that and maybe we can work together. Traoré thought carefully. Burkina Faso will vote with America on issues where our interests genuinely align. We'll consider American companies for projects on competitive terms. We'll share intelligence on regional security threats. We'll maintain open dialogue even when we disagree. But we won't exclude China or Russia just because you want us to. Won't vote your way on issues where we disagree. Won't grant exclusive access that we don't grant to others. That's genuine partnership. Take it or leave it. Trump looked at his advisors. They nodded slightly. Not everything they wanted. But more than they'd get through continued pressure. Okay. Here's what I'll agree to. America won't pressure international institutions to deny you loans. Won't tell companies to avoid investing. Won't demand you exclude other powers. But in exchange, you keep us informed about what you're doing with China and Russia. You give American companies fair shot at contracts. You work with us on counterterrorism. And you stop publicly framing America as an imperial power. We can disagree. But do it diplomatically, not in UN speeches that make us look like villains. Traoré extended his hand. That's acceptable. Not perfect for either of us. But acceptable. They shook. This time Trump didn't do his dominance handshake. Just shook normally. Because he'd learned that dominance games didn't work with Traoré. You know what the difference is between you and other African leaders I've met? Trump asked. They come in wanting something from me. You came in wanting me to accept something about you. That's different. Frustrating. But different. Because I don't see America as a donor I need to please. I see America as one partner among many. That's not disrespect. It's just reality from my perspective. Well, your perspective is a pain in my ass. But I can work with it. Just don't make me regret this. And don't make me regret giving you a second chance. Years later, when asked about Trump, Traoré always said, he expected compliance because that's what he was used to from small nations. I delivered defiance because compliance without sovereignty isn't partnership. He didn't like it. Tried to punish it. But eventually realized that breaking me would cost more than accepting me as I am. That's the lesson: stand firm on your principles, accept the costs, and sometimes even the most powerful opponents adapt. Not because they want to. But because they have to.